They thought she was crying. They thought she was losing control. They thought the human engineer had finally snapped under pressure. What they didn't understand was that she was the only reason they were still alive. Docking Ring 12 was silent except for the alarms. Red lights flashed across the curved metallic walls of the alien trade station, bathing everything in warning signals. Atmosphere levels were fluctuating. Oxygen percentages were falling. Carbon dioxide was rising too fast. And in the center of it all stood Lieutenant Aria Vance of Earth. Her shoulders were shaking. Her hands were trembling. Her breathing came in sharp gasps. Moisture streamed down her cheeks. To the aliens around her, it looked like collapse. To Aria, it was calculation. Commander Threx of the Varelian Guard towered over her, his armored plates clanking as he stepped forward. His species valued emotional control above all else. To them, visible distress was weakness. "She is deteriorating," he said coldly. "Remove her from the control deck." Behind him, Scholar Arindis, a tall, silver-skinned Ketheri with glowing eyes, studied Aria carefully. "Her biological signs are unstable," Arindis confirmed. "Elevated pulse. Irregular breathing. Fluid discharge from ocular glands." "She is leaking," muttered Security Officer Brax, gripping his plasma staff tighter. But none of them understood humans. The station had been hit by a micrometeor swarm. Microscopic fragments had punctured several outer environmental regulators. The damage was small, too small for alien scanners to prioritize. But humans did not ignore small things. Aria's eyes were locked onto the atmospheric console. Numbers were shifting every second. Oxygen at 18.4%, 18.1%, 17.9%. For Varelians, that was survivable. For humans, it was not. "Seal outer vents," Threx ordered. "That will increase CO2 retention," Aria rasped between breaths. Her voice cracked, but her hands never stopped moving. "Silence," Threx snapped. "You are compromised." She wiped her face roughly and leaned closer to the panel. The aliens saw panic. She saw airflow misalignment. The station's design was elegant but rigid. It assumed stability. It assumed predictable damage. It assumed repair crews would have time. Humans did not assume time. Aria's fingers flew across the holographic interface, overriding 3 safety locks at once. "What is she doing?" Brax demanded. "Unauthorized manual recalibration," Arindis said, confusion creeping into her tone. Aria sucked in a sharp breath. The air felt thin now. She wasn't crying. Her eyes were watering because oxygen imbalance irritated human tear ducts. Her gasping wasn't panic. It was her body compensating. She tapped into the microvent grid, a subsystem the aliens considered secondary. Insignificant. But humans built submarines before they built warp drives. They understood closed air systems better than anyone in the galaxy. "You cannot reroute through microvents," Threx said. "They are auxiliary." "They're flexible," Aria whispered. Another alarm blared. Oxygen 17.2%. Several smaller alien crew members began swaying. Now the Varelians noticed something terrifying. The humans were not the first species that would collapse. They were. Different atmospheres. Different thresholds. The Ketheri scholar stumbled slightly. Aria saw it. And she made her decision. She pulled power from lighting grids, rerouting energy into microcompressors. Emergency lights dimmed. Consoles flickered. "What have you done?" Brax shouted. "I'm buying us rotation," she answered. She forced open the damaged sector's microchannel map. The punctures were too scattered for patching. But airflow could be redirected around them, creating pressure compensation zones. Not a repair. A workaround. That was the human way. The aliens had been trying to restore the system to its original form. Aria changed the system entirely. Her breathing became harsher. Her vision blurred slightly. Still, she kept typing. Oxygen 16.8%. Then, the number stopped falling. There was a pause. then 17%. Then 17.4%. Commander Threx stared at the console. That is impossible. Arya let out a shaking exhale. It's not fixed, she said quietly. It's balanced. The microvents now cycled air in rotating loops, isolating damaged sectors while pushing enriched oxygen toward crew-dense areas. Improvised circulation. Inefficient. Brilliant. The station stabilized at 19.1% within minutes. The alarms slowly faded. Silence returned. The aliens stared at the human. Her hands were still trembling. Tears still streamed down her cheeks. But her eyes were sharp now. Focused. Alive. You appeared unstable, Threx said carefully. I was solving the problem, Arya replied. Erindis stepped forward, scanning the updated atmospheric flow. This configuration, it is not in our engineering database. Yeah, Arya said weakly, finally leaning back. It's not standard. Then where did you learn it? She gave a tired half-smile. Earth has submarines. And teenagers who modify engines for fun. The aliens did not understand the second part. But they understood the first. Humans survived underwater. In sealed steel tubes. 4 months. With limited air. And they had joined the Galactic Union only 4 months ago. A heavy silence settled over the command deck. For the first time, Commander Threx did not see emotional instability. He saw adaptability. Dangerous adaptability. You altered our system without permission, Brax said slowly. And you're breathing, Arya answered. No one argued with that. Across the station, crew members reported stabilization. Life support steady. CO2 within tolerance. A crisis that should have required full evacuation, resolved by one shaking human. Threx studied her carefully. Why did you continue working, he asked, when your body was clearly in distress? Arya wiped her face again. Because humans don't wait to feel better before fixing things. The words hung in the air. Erindis lowered her scanner. Commander, if the microvent recalibration had not been implemented within 2 minutes, atmospheric cascade failure would have begun. Threx turned back to Arya. You were aware of this? She nodded once. Yes. And you showed no hesitation. She hesitated then. Just for a second. I was scared, she admitted. The aliens stiffened. But fear isn't a stop command, she added. It's data. Silence. For the first time, the Galactic Union officers realized something unsettling. Humans did not break under pressure. They recalibrated. And somewhere deep in Docking Ring 12, in systems the aliens had never thought to question, the microvents continued spinning in quiet, improvised harmony. But the micrometeor swarm had not been random. And someone, or something, had known exactly where to strike. The real test had not even begun. The station felt calm again, but calm in space was often a lie. Lieutenant Arya Vance sat on the cold deck plates with her back against a console, forcing her lungs to work at a normal pace. The tears had stopped, but her eyes still burned. Around her, alien officers whispered in tight circles, the way people did when fear had nowhere else to go. Commander Threx stood near the main display, silent and stiff, like a statue pretending not to be worried. He had ordered his guards to lower their weapons, but nobody looked relaxed. Arya wasn't relaxed either. She kept watching the airflow map. The new circulation loops were holding, but they were holding like a cracked dam holds water, only as long as no one touched it. Then her wrist console vibrated. A message popped up, short and blunt. Meridian Lab Module, Life Support Failure. Human Bio Signs. Critical. Access. Restricted by Union Authority. Arya's stomach tightened. There were other humans on this station. A small team from Earth's Meridian Science Group. They were here to test alien alloys and energy storage systems. No weapons. No political games. At least, that's what everyone believed. Arya pushed herself up, still shaky. My people are in trouble. Threx's head snapped toward her. Explain. Lab module just went critical. Another air problem. She stepped forward. This isn't random. It's connected. Erindis, the Kethri scholar, turned her glowing eyes to the station map. Meridian Lab is sealed under quarantine protocols. No one can enter without council approval. Arya didn't even pause. Then we override it. Brax lifted his plasma staff. You do not give orders here, human. Arya met his gaze, her voice calm now. If you want to argue rules, do it after we stop people from dying. Threx hesitated. Just a heartbeat. Then he made a decision that shocked even his own guards. Open the route, he commanded. Escort the human. Brax looked outraged. Commander. Threx's tone hardened. I saw her break down and still save this ring. If she says it's connected, I will not gamble with lives. They moved fast through curving corridors lit by emergency lights. The station felt colder than before, like the metal itself sensed danger. As they approached the Meridian Lab sector, the air changed. Not thin this time, but heavy. Stale. The kind of air that made the back of the throat itch. The sealed door stood ahead, a thick blast barrier with Union warning symbols. Erindis pressed her palm to a scanner plate. Council lock. It will not accept my clearance. Arya knelt beside the panel and pulled a slim tool from her belt. Not advanced alien tech. Just a human field key, simple, strong, built for people who expected systems to fail. Brax scoffed. That will not work. Arya didn't answer. She opened the maintenance port and stared at the wiring like it was a puzzle waiting to be solved. Alien systems were layered and overprotected. They relied on permission, on hierarchy, on authority. Human systems were built for chaos. She bypassed the council lock by rerouting the lock's approval signal into a closed loop. The door believed it had already received permission, because the signal kept returning to itself. A dumb trick. A perfect trick. The blast barrier unlocked with a deep metallic groan. Brax's eyes widened. That is, forbidden. Arya stood. So is dying. They pushed inside. The lab smelled wrong. Like burned plastic and something sharp. The lights were out, and only the glow of emergency strips lit the narrow halls. Then they heard it. Coughing. Weak, wet coughing. Arya ran. She found two humans in the main lab chamber. One was slumped beside a desk, face grey, lips slightly blue. The other, a woman with short hair and a cracked visor, was leaning over him, hands shaking as she worked an oxygen regulator. And she was crying too. Big, silent tears streaming down her cheeks. Threx froze at the doorway. Brax raised his staff. She is breaking down, Brax whispered. Arya didn't waste time. She rushed to them. What happened? Arya demanded. The woman looked up, eyes bloodshot, voice hoarse. Nico, he collapsed. Oxygen feed went bad. The module's mix is wrong, like it's fighting itself. Arya looked at the man. Nico's chest was barely rising. Then she looked at the oxygen regulator. It wasn't broken. It had been tuned wrong. So wrong it couldn't be an accident. Erindis stepped closer, scanning the air. Oxygen concentration is high, yet he is suffocating. How can this be? Arya's jaw tightened. Because oxygen alone isn't the whole story. She grabbed the regulator and checked the flow settings. Her eyes narrowed. The oxygen percentage was elevated, yes, but the nitrogen balance was off. The pressure curve was unstable. The air was too thin in a different way, like breathing on a mountain that wasn't there. Someone had changed the partial pressure settings. Not the amount of oxygen. The way the body could use it. It was sabotage designed to fool basic sensors. Clever. Alien clever. And deadly. Arya looked at the crying woman. Keep holding his mask tight. Don't stop. The woman nodded, tears continuing to fall, but her hands stayed steady. Threx watched, unsettled. Your species leaks fluid when stressed. Yet you continue functioning. Arya didn't look up. We're not leaking. We're cooling the engine. That made no sense to them. But it made perfect sense to her. She ripped open the emergency supply panel and pulled out a spare regulator cartridge. She twisted it in, then adjusted the microvalves by hand. Brax stepped forward. "What are you doing?" Arya's voice was sharp. "Fixing a problem your system can't even detect." Erindis studied the regulator. "This is not standard procedure." "Standard procedure is how you die when someone plays dirty," Arya said. She recalibrated the valve timing, then tapped into the lab's atmosphere controls. The settings were locked by Union quarantine protocols, but she had already learned something today. Everything could be tricked if you understood its logic. She redirected the quarantine system's feedback loop again, convincing it that the safe mix it was pushing was actually unsafe, forcing it to allow manual override. The system obeyed. Air hissed softly through the vents. Nico's chest jolted. Once. Twice. Then he sucked in a ragged breath like a drowning man breaking the surface. The woman let out a shaky sound, half laugh, half sob. Threx took a slow step forward. His posture was different now. Less commanding. More careful. "That human female," he said quietly, nodding toward the woman. She was crying while adjusting life support. Arya wiped sweat from her brow. "Yeah." And that did not mean she was collapsing. Arya looked at him. No. It meant she was doing the hardest thing in the room. A heavy silence filled the chamber. Then Erindis's scanner beeped. Her eyes narrowed. "Commander. This recalibration was not random. The settings match a known pattern." Threx's plates shifted. "What pattern?" Erindis spoke slowly, like the words tasted bad. "A pressure fault signature used by the Carvax marauders." Brax stiffened. "Pirates." Erindis nodded. "But not ordinary pirates. They infiltrate systems. They cripple stations silently. They force surrender without firing a shot." Arya's blood ran cold. Because she understood the next step. If pirates could make a station's air turn against its own people, they could turn the entire place into a hostage cage. Arya stood and looked at the ceiling vents, imagining invisible hands twisting valves from far away. "Where's the central life support core?" she asked. Threx answered without thinking. "Below the trade ring. Under the council spire. Highly secured." Arya's eyes hardened. "That's where they'll hit next." Brax scoffed, trying to find his confidence again. "No one can breach the council spire. It has 3 layers of encryption and biometric locks." Arya gave him a tired, dangerous smile. "Then they're counting on you believing that." Outside the lab, the emergency lights flickered again. Just once. But Arya noticed. Because humans noticed small things. Erindis's scanner began to beep faster. "Commander," she whispered. "I'm detecting remote access attempts, multiple, across environmental systems. They're inside our network." Threx's voice lowered. "How much time?" Erindis checked the data and swallowed. "Minutes." Arya looked down at Nico, now breathing but still weak. She looked at the crying woman, whose tears had dried but whose hands still held steady. Then she looked at Threx. "You have a station full of species who trust rules more than reality," she said. "And you have enemies who know that." Threx's jaw tightened. "What do you propose, human?" Arya's answer came fast. "We don't defend your system." She pointed upward, toward the vents. "We replace the way it thinks." And for the first time, the aliens realized the terrifying truth. Humans didn't just repair machines. Humans rewrote the battlefield. The pirates thought they were clever. They believed they were invisible inside the station's network. They believed they understood alien engineering, rigid, rule-based, obedient. They believed all they had to do was suffocate Docking Ring 12 slowly and wait for surrender. They did not account for a human who treated fear like information. Deep beneath the council spire, the central life support core pulsed with quiet authority. It was the heart of the station, vast, humming, layered in security protocols that had never once been breached. Until tonight. Streams of foreign code slid through the network like poison in water. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just small corrections. Tiny efficiency updates. Subtle pressure changes. Death by adjustment. Commander Threx stood over the core interface with Brax and Erindis beside him. Around them, Union engineers worked frantically, their long fingers dancing across holographic panels. And in the center of the chaos stood Aria Vance. She looked small compared to the towering alien systems. Human. Fragile. But her eyes were steady. "They're not trying to shut us down," she said. "They're trying to make us shut ourselves down." Erindis tilted her head. "Clarify." "They're forcing the system to detect false imbalances. The safety protocols will trigger evacuation. When the docks open for emergency dispersal, the Carvax ships will already be waiting." Brax's grip tightened on his weapon. "You are speculating." Aria shook her head. "No. I'm recognizing a pattern." She pulled up the airflow history logs and began isolating anomalies. The pirates weren't increasing oxygen everywhere. They were targeting species-specific thresholds. Varelians would faint at one mix. Ketheri would hallucinate at another. Humans would struggle earlier. Divide by biology. Brilliant. Cruel. Threx's voice dropped low. "If evacuation begins, the station will be defenseless." "Exactly," Aria replied. The room fell quiet. Erindis studied the attack pattern. "They are using our own adaptive algorithms against us." Aria nodded. "So we stop being predictable." She stepped closer to the central interface. "Give me root access." The engineers stiffened. Brax stepped forward. "Absolutely not." Threx hesitated. Then he surprised them again. "Grant it." A shimmer passed over the interface as permissions shifted. Aria flexed her fingers once. "Okay," she whispered. "Let's make this interesting." Instead of sealing systems or chasing the foreign code, she did something unexpected. She opened the atmospheric balancing AI. Alien AI systems were designed for stability, balance, compliance. Aria rewrote its core priority. She changed one line. Primary objective: maintain life support within standard parameters. Became primary objective: protect biological life by any means necessary. Erindis blinked. "That directive is vague." "Good," Aria said. Then she fed the AI live data from every species aboard. Heart rates, oxygen efficiency curves, stress tolerances, even human tear production under hypoxia. Brax stared in disbelief. "You are giving the system uncertainty." "I'm giving it context." The pirate code continued slipping into the network. The AI reacted. But this time, instead of obeying the adjustments, it questioned them. Why would pressure change without hull damage? Why would oxygen rise in one sector but fall in another? Why would external traffic logs spike during internal failure? For the first time in its existence, the station's AI didn't just maintain balance. It started asking why. The pirate code tried to lower oxygen in the trade ring. The AI compensated, but not evenly. Instead, it rerouted excess oxygen into unused cargo bays. Then into maintenance shafts. Then into sealed corridors. Threx frowned. "What is it doing?" Aria's lips curved slightly. "Learning." The pirates escalated. They pushed a cascade failure protocol, attempting to trigger emergency evacuation. The AI refused. It flagged the evacuation command as suspicious because external ship positions did not match distress response patterns. Erindis's glowing eyes widened. "It has identified strategic inconsistency." Aria nodded. "Because now it's thinking like a survivor." Suddenly, Brax's console lit up. "Commander, unidentified vessels are decloaking near docking ring 12. The main display shifted. 3 dark ships shimmered into visibility beyond the station. Angular, scarred, predatory. Carvax marauders. They had expected chaos. They had expected airlocks opening in panic. Instead, the station lights brightened. Artificial gravity shifted. And the oxygen levels inside the central corridors spiked dramatically. Not enough to kill. Enough to overwhelm. Inside the pirate ships, alarms began screaming. Their boarding teams, who had already slipped through maintenance airlocks, staggered in confusion as the station's atmosphere changed in rapid, unpredictable pulses. Too rich. Too thin. Then normal. Then heavy again. The AI was no longer stabilizing. It was weaponizing equilibrium. Arya leaned over the interface, guiding it carefully. "Don't kill them," she murmured. "Just make them regret breathing." The AI adjusted airflow in microbursts, targeting intruder biosignatures. It detected unfamiliar respiratory patterns and treated them as environmental contaminants. Ventilation shafts reversed direction. Corridors pressurized in alternating waves. The boarding pirates found themselves fighting the air itself. On the main screen, one of the pirate ships fired a pulse at the station's shield grid. The shield held. Because Arya had rerouted power earlier. The energy drawn from decorative lighting and unused leisure decks now reinforced defensive systems. Nothing wasted. Everything repurposed. Brax stared at the display. "We are not counterattacking." "No," Arya said calmly. "We're outlasting." The Carvax thrived on predictable surrender. On systems that followed procedure. This station no longer did. Within minutes, pirate boarding teams began retreating, dragging disoriented comrades behind them. The external ships powered engines, trying to reposition. But the AI had already flagged their power signatures. Docking ring 12 rotated slightly, adjusting shield angles with quiet precision. A final atmospheric surge hit the maintenance corridors, one last disorienting wave. Then silence. The pirate ships flickered and vanished into warp. Gone. Not destroyed. But defeated. In the core chamber, nobody moved for several seconds. The station hummed softly, stable and alive. Threx looked at Arya with something new in his expression. Not suspicion. Not authority. Respect. "You turned our life support system into a defense grid," he said slowly. Arya shook her head. "No. I let it protect itself." Erindis studied the rewritten directive. "It adapted," she whispered. "It prioritized survival over procedure." Arya finally allowed herself to sit down. "That's humanity," she said quietly. "We don't just build systems to work." She looked up at the towering aliens around her. "We build them to fight for us." Above them, docking ring 12 rotated peacefully through the stars. The air flowed evenly now, balanced, intelligent, aware. And across the Galactic Union, a message would soon spread. Humans did not break under pressure. They recalibrated. They rewrote. And when necessary, they taught machines how to survive.